Imagine being able to remember all of the items on your to-do list without having to write them down. What if you could give a presentation or talk without having to refer to notes? Maybe you just want to remember more stuff. In my day job, I'm a professional magician. If that's not weird enough, I also competed in the World Memory Championships several years ago. Yes, these things actually exist. Over the last few years, I've become known for a performance piece where I quickly remember a list of random objects and then recite them back in and out of order. Audiences find it really impressive, and it's often one of the most talked about things after my show. Magicians are not meant to reveal their secrets. I'm going to make an exception to that rule in this video because this isn't actually a magic trick. It's a centuries-old memory technique that you can use to remember all sorts of useful things. The technique that I'm going to teach you is called the PEG memory system. It's called that because you're going to create mental pegs on which to hang your memories. Don't worry, this will all make sense. You can use the PEG system to memorize anything that can be turned into a list. This could be an actual list, like a shopping list or a to-do list. It could be the key points in a presentation or speech. Or it could even be key facts about something that you're studying for. Here's a shopping list as an example. By the end of this video, you're going to be able to recall this list in and out of order easily. If I give you a number, you'll know what the item is at that number, and vice versa. First, we're going to create some mental images to represent the numbers on our list. The reason we do this is because numbers are abstract. You can't hold, touch, taste, feel, smell numbers. And as we'll see a little bit later on, those things are really important for memorization. There are a few different ways to create these pegs. One way is to use a rhyming system. That's where you replace the numbers with objects that rhyme with the sound of the number. So for instance, number 1 could be sun. Imagine a big, hot, shining sun. Mentally try to see the brightness of the sun, feel the heat of it on your body. Another way to do this is to use a number shape system. That's where you replace the numbers with objects that are shaped in a similar way to the numbers. So in that example, number 1 could be a pen or a pencil. We're going to use the rhyming system to create pegs for the numbers 1 to 10, and then I'll show you how to use those pegs to memorize the shopping list that we saw earlier on. Later on in the video, I'll show you how to expand this to 20 pegs by using the number shape system, and that'll allow you to memorize a list of 20 different things. We already have number 1, that's sun. 2 is going to be shoe. Imagine a huge, giant shoe. 3 will be tree. Really try to see the tree, hear the sound and see the branches blowing in the wind. 4 will be door. Maybe think of a big red door with gold handles. 5 will be hive, like a beehive. Hear the sound of the bees as they buzz around the hive. 6 will be tricks. Think of a magician with a top hat and a magic wand. 7 is heaven. Imagine some big white fluffy clouds with angels standing on them. 8 is gate. Think of a huge wrought iron gate. Imagine the sound of it as it creaks open. 9 is wine. Imagine a huge oversized glass of red wine. Try to mentally smell the wine and taste it. 10 is hen. See a huge hen walking along, clucking as it does so. That's our pegs for the numbers 1 to 10. Let's just check that you can remember them all, and then I'll show you how to use them to memorize random lists and things. If there were any that you couldn't quite remember, you want to go back and reinforce those mental images. Ideally, you want to get to the point where when you see a number, the substitute peg image automatically comes to your mind. How do we use these pegs to memorize a list of random things? To do that, we're going to use association. We're going to create a mental image linking the peg word for our number with the object or thing that we want to remember. In our shopping list example earlier, the first item was tomatoes, and our peg word for the number 1 is sun. So you could imagine a giant tomato in the sky in the place of the sun. Or you could imagine a tomato that's really bright and so hot that you can't pick it up. We're going to do this for each of the 10 items in the shopping list, but first a few tips on how to make this work really effectively. When you're creating mental images, try to engage as many emotions as possible. You'll notice earlier when I was trying to get you to remember the peg words, I encouraged you to try to feel, hear, taste, smell the different images. The more senses you can engage, the better, because this activates different parts of our mind and it makes the images more memorable. Make the images strange. We tend to remember the weird and wonderful, and we forget the boring and mundane. Make your mental images cartoon-like, oversized, improbable. Moving images tend to be more memorable than static ones, so add movement to your mental images if possible. Finally, we tend to remember images that invoke emotion. Sexual and violent images tend to be the most memorable. With that in mind, let's have a look at the rest of the shopping list. Number 2 in the shopping list was soup, and our peg word for 2 is shoe. Imagine going to put your shoes on and they're filled with soup. Imagine the feeling of the soup as it touches your feet and spills out all over the floor. Number 3 is coffee, and our peg word for 3 is tree. Imagine a huge tree, and hanging from the branches are coffee cups blowing in the wind as coffee spills out of them onto the floor. 4 is milk. Our peg word for 4 is door. So imagine that big bright red door that you saw earlier and someone's thrown loads of milk over it. Imagine seeing the milk running down the door. Think of the smell of it. 5 is eggs. Our peg word for 5 is hive. So imagine a giant egg cracking open and bees buzzing out of the egg. 6 is bananas. Our peg word for 6 is tricks. So imagine that magician we saw earlier, but in place of his magic wand, he's holding a giant banana. 7 is spinach. Our peg word for 7 is heaven. So imagine angels standing on big green clouds made out of spinach. 8 is rice. Our keyword for 8 was gate. So imagine a giant gate, and as you open it, you notice it's made out of rice instead of iron, and all the rice starts falling to the floor as it creaks open. 9 is beef mince. And our keyword for 9 was wine. So imagine a big oversized wine glass, but instead of having wine inside, there is beef mince. Yummy. Finally, 10 is pizza. Our peg word for 10 was hen. So imagine a giant hen sitting on the sofa watching TV with a big takeaway pizza box on its lap. So that's our shopping list. Do you think you can remember them all? Let's have a look. How did you do? I'd love to know, do let me know in the comments. You can also call them back in and out of order. So if I said to you number 5, what was the item there? If I said beef mince, what number was that at? What was the second item? You see how easy it is? I've used a shopping list as an example, but you can use this to memorize anything that you can turn into a list. It could be a bunch of tasks that you need to complete, or some creative ideas that you have while you're in the shower. Maybe you've got to give a speech or presentation and you can use it to memorize the key points in that talk. Maybe you just want to impress your friends in the pub, get them to call out a random list of objects and then recite them back in and out of order. If you want to double the peg list to 20 items, one way to do this is to create another 10 using the number shape system. You can use 1 to 10 again, but these will represent the numbers 11 to 20. This might look something like this. 1 is a pencil, 2 is a swan, 3 is a pair of handcuffs, 4 is a sailing boat, 5 is a hook, 6 is a golf club, 7 is a boomerang, 8 is an hourglass, 9 is a balloon on a string, and 10 is a bat and ball. Now with the 10 rhyming peg words and the 10 number shape peg words, you've got 20 pegs to play with. That will allow you to memorize a list of 20 different objects. I'd love to know how you get on with this. Do let me know in the comments and have fun with it.